I was this way with Blizzard. Like I had no interest in Overwatch. Like Overwatch wasn't a kind of game I played. I was a WoW player. Like the only FPS I had played before then was Modern Warfare 2. I guess Gears. It's technically third-person FPS. And Halo. And then I played PUBG after that. Like what the fuck would I care about Overwatch for? But because it was made by Blizzard, I was like, oh, I bet this is going to be really good because Blizzard's really good. And that's the way it used to be. Same with Bungie is the same way. I like anybody who played the old games, like we already know this is the Bungie logo. Bungie used to be massive. It's huge.
Remember that feeling of seeing those logos pop up when loading a game?
EA Games.
Challenge everything.
Especially when it was blue.
That rush of excitement, knowing you were about to dive into one of the best gaming experiences of your life.
I felt that way. The last time I really felt that way was with Elden Ring. With Black Myth Wukong, like it was like such a wild card, right? You know, Chinese developer, pretty much unproven record with AAA games. What are you really expecting to get out of this? But with Elden Ring, like bro, I sat down and I knew today was the day. You know? It was great.
I knew it was gonna be good. Same with like second.
But unfortunately, over the years, something has been happening, and it didn't happen overnight. It's been a slow, gradual change, like watching someone age or noticing yourself slowly gaining weight. It's happening right in front of us, but we don't fully grasp how much things have changed until one day we look in the mirror, or even at an old photo, and the difference is startling. Over the years, the trust, originality, and innovation that once defined AAA companies has been slowly fading.
I think one of the really big weaknesses of games now is that games are produced with such a big budget that they need to appeal to a broad enough target audience, a target audience that at least through simulation and through like a projection, like a financial projections, that they can make their money back on. So like logically, if you can make 200% of your money back, you would want to invest the most amount of money possible. And if you want to invest the most amount of money possible, you want to make the most money, you have to appeal to the most people. So what happens is that games become more and more complex, because one thing that I can really notice with old games is that many old games play like Space Marine 2, where it has a pretty narrow breadth of content. It's not like you can go and do everything. There isn't some big open world. There's a lobby and you can do that thing and that's it. And I think that Monster Hunter is kind of the same way in a different fashion. But I feel like most games are trying to become like your everything game. And they're doing that, I think, because they can't justify the budget that they're investing into this game unless the target audience can be projected to be everyone. So if you look back and you go back and play a lot of these old games, like I did this with Dragon's Dogma 1, the game really isn't that complex. There's not a lot to it, but what there is good.
Seeing logos from developers I used to admire now fills me with skepticism, even a strong urge to avoid their games. What I find surprising is how patient and forgiving gamers have been towards AAA companies for so long. A great example of this has been the Battlefield franchise, particularly with the launch of Battlefield 5 in November 2018.
Yeah.
This is the first game in the franchise that was surrounded by quite a bit of controversy and received a lot of mixed to negative reactions.
What now, dislikes? This trailer must have been a banger back then? Yeah, for sure.
Despite being part of a well-loved, long-standing series of games.
Yeah.
Although I am only talking about the Battlefield IP here, you'll probably notice similar patterns with other major AAA companies and their once-revered franchises. Battlefield 5...
I mean, Diablo, like, I feel like Diablo has... I've been really surprised to see so few people excited about the expansion for Diablo. Like, it almost feels like it's not coming out. Am I the only person that's noticed that?
I've faced backlash after its reveal trailer, primarily due to the perceived historical inaccuracies. The inclusion of female soldiers in a World War II game led some fans to criticize the game as unrealistic, sparking debate over political correctness. DICE, the developer...
I think the problem is that you can't really have a...
by standing for...
You can't really have a... You can't have a historical game where it's like World War II and you have like women with like a claw hand beating up men fighting on the front lines. Anybody is going to watch that and they're going to think to themselves, the reason why this is happening is because of political correctness. Every normal person knows that's not what's happening. They know that it's completely unrealistic and it's silly. And so when you look at what you're seeing here, you know that you're not going to get an authentic experience. Nobody asked for that. It's ridiculous. It's a game. It's fantasy. Well, if it was fantasy, then why?
Well, he's not wrong, but women did fight. I don't know a lot of them, but I know the Russian tank lady bought a tank, went to adventure. What is that?
Are they make?
World War II, right? Yeah, it was World War II. She bought her own tank and went on a revenge spree because her husband died in the war. There's a sniper too. Yeah. This woman. Yeah, pretty much sold all her possessions. Donate a tank for the war effort. And requested that she be allowed to drive it. But yeah, like a woman fighting the front lines, like unless she's like built like an Amazon and much stronger than the average man. Yeah, like it's totally possible, but yeah, political correctness does weasel its way in and ruins things. And all that woke BS.
Making things that aren't realistic, right? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's fantasy. Well, then why can't it just be all guys? Yeah, this is fiction. Also, like, this is it and that's actually, yeah, what am I even saying that for? It's not fiction. Like, they're making this and they're basing this off of like something that happened in the past. Like, it's based off World War II. And also, like, it's just such an obvious it's such obvious, just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna put a woman in here for no reason. Anytime I see something like this, I automatically assume the game is going to be garbage. Because to these people, it matters more that the game represents some sort of ideology rather than the game is actually good or has any sort of like real gameplay. At a very, very face level, these people are more concerned with the aesthetics of the game and making this game look like it conforms to modern standards than making this game faithful to what it's trying to represent. It's a priority list. Yeah, exactly. It's immersion breaking. It is. It's massively immersion breaking.
On their creative choices, which only escalated the controversy. Further fueling the fire, a DICE executive famously responded to criticism with, if you don't like it, don't buy it.
Oh.
Does this remind you of anything? This alone caused a portion of the fan base to not buy into Battlefield 5.
Yeah, people listened. That's bad.
Including myself. The game's marketing was seen as completely unfocused. The reveal trailer with its chaotic and almost cartoonish tone confused fans about whether this game was a serious, historically themed World War II shooter. This lack of clear direction left many of us unsure of what to expect from Battlefield 5. Upon release, Battlefield 5 felt incomplete, missing key features such as the promised Firestorm Battle Royale mode and Tides of War live service content, which were
that's
delayed.
the big problem. They didn't have a Battle Royale. Is like, this came out, like he said, 2018. In 2018, everything was about Battle Royales. They should have released with a BR mode. Like, this is, again, it's a studio that, it did? Did it have it on release? They patched it later on? Yeah, see that?
Other promised features like the combined arms co-op mode were also absent at launch, making the game feel quite bare bones compared to previous entries like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4. When we finally got these features, they were apparently not worth the wait. Now this is what it is. And we've seen many glorious redemption stories from poor launches over the years. So I'll give it to DICE that Battlefield 5 is a decent enough game to play now.
Yeah, I've heard that this game has been improved, but the thing is that if people make up their mind that the game is bad, most people are not going to want to admit that they were wrong and come back and play the game afterwards. And I think that's what happens the most. Is that, like, as soon as the game comes out and people get a bad impression of it, then the game is permanently bad. I think that there's a lot of examples of this. I think that really you could use No Man's Sky. Think about how long it took them to rebuild that reputation. Cyberpunk 2077. And then also WoW. Like, for example, I think that Blizzard fixed a lot of the problems that alienated players in terms of, like, gearing and, like, systems. But a lot of people don't come back to the game because they had a bad experience with it and they just don't really feel like playing anymore. So I think that there's a lot of cases, like Lords of the Fallen is the same way. Apparently they made a bunch of changes to the game, and as far as I know, nobody even came back to try it out. So the problem is that if you come out with a game and then the release of the game is, like, very, very bad, it's very hard to get a second first impression from players.
Upon launch, it disappointed quite a lot of us. In summary, and in line with my topic, Battlefield 5's launch was plagued by controversy, miscommunication, missing features, and technical problems, leading to a mixed reception and pretty disappointing sales.
Yep.
Now, this can happen.
surprise.
It can happen to any game, and there are some awesome redemption stories, like I said before. But there's not supposed to be a pattern. This is not supposed to happen to every single game on what was once a beloved IP from a company that is known for making incredible games in the past. If you're going downhill, if you are on track to death, survival instinct is supposed to kick in and you're supposed to turn around and go the other way.
You're supposed to.
Now, in line with what I've been talking about with Battlefield, I want you to think back and see if you can spot any of these trends with other IPs from AAA developers over the years.
I think it happens all the time. Happens constantly. And what ends up happening is that these games, they try to appeal to a broader and broader audience, and eventually they water down the experience of the game to where it appeals to nobody, including the original audience. I think this happens with a lot of games, is that they try to, like, standardize it and make it, like, completely appealing to everyone. Like, WoW is the best example of this. Right, Anthem, I don't know, I didn't play Anthem. But, like, Assassin's Creed in a nutshell. Yeah, and I think also the other issue is that a lot of people grade the quality of a game based off of how long they spend playing the game, which I think is a really bad metric. I think is a really bad metric. I think is a really bad metric.
Test. Test. Test, test. Test. Test, test. 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 Test, test. Test.